All right, thank you very much for joining us back right here on ET Now. We are in conversation with the main architects of the budget, and joining us on the show right now is Mr. Neeraj Gupta, Secretary DIPAM, and Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Secretary Department of Financial Services. And I've also got my consulting editor, Maithili Basnur, in conversation with us on that. Let's take it across to Mr. Gupta then, and thank you very much for being with us, both you gentlemen. Mr. Gupta, congratulations. In the history of divestment, for the first time we've crossed these targets. I would say congratulations on touching that 1 lakh crore mark. Your critics say it all came on account of the ONGC HPCL deal. There's a lot of smoke and smoke screen there. What would you say in defense before I go any further?
Well, first of all, that deal was not created for any target. The deal was very much there part of the budget, and government is committed to support any economic mergers and acquisitions where the values can be created in the enterprises. We are not in a disinvestment mode anymore. The department has gone a paradigm shift from disinvestment to investment management, and the value creation for enterprises is part of it. Keeping that in mind, this deal was hinted at in the last budget announcement. We have gone very meticulously. The top 5 global oil majors, if you see in the world, they are all vertically integrated, are getting converted into economic gains. This is the first Indian vertically integrated oil major, and it has all the merits of having, you will see, the market has received the deal very well. So it is definitely not for any divestment target, and it was part of the announcement, so it didn't come as a surprise for anybody.
All right, not a surprise for anyone, but given that backdrop and given the fact that you could overshoot your divestment target this fiscal itself, why are you going with a less ambitious target of just 80,000 crore rupees for next fiscal? Why not be more aggressive? Why not be more ambitious there? I know a lot of people will turn around and say 80,000 is very ambitious, considering you've done 1 lakh crore rupees this year, and you are talking about the merger of 3 big insurance companies, their listing. I'm presuming the rail PSUs are also on the radar. Why not look at higher numbers? Why not be more aggressive?
Supriya, I think we have very short memories. The divestment on an average target used to be around 20,000 crore for 5 years. Last year we crossed it by a huge margin, 46,250 crores, and this year it was the almost highest target ever, 72,500 crore. If you see the past 5 years performance, 20,000 on an average, it is 4 times of the target. Secondly, the targets are not set for a figure. They are exercise of a budget. Whatever is the budgetary requirement, I am sure that are being factored, and target is given to the department. And this is an exercise which will be, which has thrown up a figure as a benchmark to be achieved, and against the last year's target of 72,500, target is probably more ambitious than the most ambitious target this year.
All right, Mr. Gupta, a very quick question before I hand it over to Maithili Basnur to take it forward with Mr. Kumar there. The question also is on Air India privatization. I haven't seen the fine print just yet, but are you budgeting for Air India privatization in your numbers just yet? Are you hopeful this will happen in the next financial year, the transaction?
Again, I will definitely make one point. These strategic divestments should not be linked to targets. They are part of a process where we are trying to say that their economic potential of these organizations should be fully exploited, whether with the government hand or in the private hands. So Air India is part of that deal, but basically aiming at what number we have, because the deal is yet to be constructed. But keeping that in mind, Air India is one of the 24 such deals which are in the market. 7 of them has already hit, and I can assure you that it is progressing smoothly, and you will definitely see more results in current future only.
Kumar, if I could now shift to the banking and the financial sector space. The government has spent a great deal of taxpayer money, in fact, to recapitalize the banks in the hope of getting them into better health. But if you look at the numbers in terms of the dividend and profit expected from public sector banks and the Reserve Bank of India, the number for the next fiscal is even less than what it was in 2016-17. So does it suggest two things? Number one, that the RBI's profits are either not going to increase, or two, they are not going to pass on very much to the government, and the public sector banks will not be in a position to give much dividend to the government. Which way should one read these numbers, which are decidedly much less optimistic than one would have expected after a recap package?
Right. The one is not looking through the recapitalization only on the dividend part of it. If you see the AQR which was done in 2015, it led to the increase in the NPAs, and therefore consequently the requirement of the provisioning of the banks which went substantially up. And since the provisioning and this requirement went up, the capital adequacy reduced. You are all aware of this. So the capitalization has looked at both the aspects, that you equip the banks to participate in the growth when the story is picking up and it's very robust, and therefore in the quarters which you are comparing, the dividend might not be the issue because of the excessive provisioning and the other requirements, other strains on the capital. But it's likely, it's definitely to improve through the reforms process in the years to come, and especially in 18-19.
Minister also spoke in his speech about how the recapitalization will help banks extend further credit to the extent of 5 lakh odd crores. But the problem is, just because the banks have more money, they need not necessarily lend, as we have seen in the past when banks had money but opted not to spend, for the simple reason that the fourth R, that is in terms of reform of the banking sector's governance, that has not happened, and the finance minister was completely silent on that aspect. So do you really expect public sector banks to lend more aggressively, Mr. Kumar?
Yeah, you mentioned about the governance issues and the governance reforms. If you look at the reforms agenda to which the capitalization is very, very intricately linked, there is a whole chapter and a theme on the governance issues. One is, number one, the entire reforms has been assigned to one specific director within the board. The boards have been empowered, and one is very consciously looking at professionalizing and empowering the boards. So this empowerment is definitely one of the to guide, and they are being professionalized and empowered.
On the insurance sector, what was the rationale behind this merger that you announced, and that also only of 3 of the non-life insurance companies? What was the rationale? Is it that big is always more beautiful?
I would like to say so.
Well, on mergers and acquisitions, the general policy last year was that if there is an economic rationale, government will support such mergers and acquisition in CPSE space just for creating better value of the enterprises and take them to next level of economic activity. Broadly, in these 3 general insurance companies which are operating in 3 geographies, and they have a lot of operational synergy, there is probably a scope for merger, which I am sure Rajiv will be able to explain you better. But with that economic rationale, when we merge these entities and then we want to list them in the market, that is the intention in the budget.
What would you like to add to that?
Yeah, one would definitely, as yeah, as Secretary Deepam mentioned, then this is the economic rationale which is at the forefront of this announcement which has been made today. One would look at the pan-India approach, the efficiencies and synergizing between the operations. So if that rationale is established, one would certainly, as per the stated policy, will go ahead with this.
Last question to you is that one of the biggest strides really for fiscal autonomy and better fiscal practices was doing away with ad hoc treasury bills with the vis-a-vis Government of India and the Reserve Bank of India. But now under the FRBM amendment bill, which is part of the finance bill, I see that there is a clause which reintroduces that the RBI may subscribe to primary auction of government securities. Now, does that not go very much against the entire idea of fiscal prudence of government and RBI, the entire idea of monetization of government deficit, which had become a big no-no? What do we mean by including this clause that RBI may subscribe to primary auctions?
I'm sure that you will be interacting with Secretary DA on this issue. But the policy is very, very clear. We have followed the policy of fiscal prudence. We have, in spite of having pressures for more expenditure, we have stuck to 3.5% this year, and borrowings which are not really affecting the market, they are definitely not part of it. So if you are referring to bank recapitalization bonds which are outside the markets, so that is definitely not affecting the fiscal deficit and issues related to it.
Final question, sir, and Mr. Gupta, this is really coming your way. As far as strategic divestment is concerned, there was a long list that was prepared by Niti Aayog. Where are we on those candidates? Will we see them happen in this financial year? And also, you know, some of the critics, and I'm not one of them, of divestment do question where do the proceeds go? Why are the proceeds being used to bridge the fiscal deficit, whereas they should be used for recycling of assets, creating new assets while disposing of the old ones?
See, if you recall the last budget speech of Honorable Finance Minister, both strategic divestment as well as recycling the assets, both were in the agenda. And if you see the 24 cases which were mentioned in the budget, many of them are of the units and not the CPSE itself. Meaning thereby in the steel sector, we are in the process of working out divestment of 3 steel units and not the whole of the Steel Authority of India Limited. So both the options are there. All the 24 cases are progressing. We have started this process after a gap of 12 years. And a lot has changed in terms of learning and in terms of professionally managing this affairs. 7 companies have already hit the market. 7 companies have already hit the market. And I'm sure you will see more activity. Many of them are in the last stages of inviting expression of interest. So I'm sure that you will see a lot of activity and some conclusions also.
All right. On that note, sir, thank you very, very much for speaking to us, Mr. Rajiv Kumar and Mr. Neeraj Gupta. Thank you very much for taking time out and speaking to us. The main architects of the budget are decoding the budget for you right here on ET Now.